Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Pursue the Hunt Live. I am here with Glenda Groat, and we are going to be talking about her outfit today, Canol Outfitters, and we're just going to be adding that to part 3 of our Women in Hunting series. So, welcome here, Glenda.
Thank you.
So, let's introduce you to the audience a little bit. So, talk about yourself. Are you married? Do you have kids? What do you do when you're not guiding? All that kind of stuff.
I'm married. I have 2 kids. Their ages are 4 and 5. Rewind. 5 and 6. They've had birthdays since the last time I checked, apparently. Whoops. And I manage a hunting territory in the Northwest Territories. I've been managing the area for the last 4 years, and I guided for 12 years previous to that, all over BC, the Yukon, and the Northwest Territories. And that's me.
So when you say managing the territory, so are you kind of out of the guiding and more of the business owner side then, or?
I'm the outfitter of the area, so I do majority more of the business and all of that. I still like to guide. It helps me keep my sanity. Like, I am a guide through and through. That's what feeds my soul.
Right.
So I try and get a couple hunts in a year still guiding as well as being the outfitter, but it's more the managing the whole outfit side of it that I do now.
So then let's talk about the outfit. So what kind of hunts do you offer? Duration of the hunts, time of year, just kind of give a spiel of Canol Outfitters.
So we do 10-day backpack hunts.
Okay.
We run from July 15th through till the end of September. We have a helicopter, an R44 is what we run, how we get you out into the field. And we do Dall sheep, moose, and caribou. I make sure everybody who comes to the Northwest Territories buys a caribou tag, because if you don't, you're guaranteed to see a 400 incher. That's what I tell everybody.
Yeah.
But we're really best known for sheep, and especially archery sheep hunts.
Oh, okay. That's an interesting fact. So then, so you said July 15th to the end of September. Is that how long your season is? Like, you don't go into October at all?
We don't go into October at all in the Northwest Territories. Our season we could choose to go in there, but it tends to be, we base out of Norman Wells, and it's
that's way up there.
Yeah, so it's really the time of the year. Some outfits we're about, we run almost to the end. There's a couple outfits that run longer, but then you run into like so much fog in the changing of the seasons in the Northwest Territories that it's like hunt changes might not happen on time, or, it's getting pretty wintry. Like, all the leaves are gone and it's starting to snow. Like, when we drive in and out every year, and when we drive out, we get to the border, we land at the border, and then we drive down the Canol Trail. And as we come out of the Northwest Territories and go down into the Yukon, it just gets more and more fall, and then there's yellow leaves and green grass still.
So it's like you're reversing time almost.
Yeah, exactly. And it's all, when in the Northwest Territories, all the leaves are gone, everything's brown, and it's ready for winter by the time we leave.
So the rut happens pretty early then, compared to here, we're in northern BC, where moose rut's kind of that mid-October week. So you're experiencing that quite a bit earlier.
Yeah, I tell all my clients coming when they're booking the hunt that our prime rut is right around the 15th of September. And so you're going to hit, if you come on our early hunt or our late hunt, you're going to hit that rut, right around the prime. That's when it is. And then you might get the second rut later on, but the prime is really right around the middle of September.
Oh, that's interesting. So do you do a lot of archery moose then as well?
We do. I always try and market, I like archery hunters. I like archery hunting myself. I find it so much more of a challenge. And there's just something about being so close to the animals, and as a guide, all the things that you learn every time you archery hunt, even if you're not successful by shooting something, I believe if you spend that much time close to the animals, you're successful.
And I agree, because I've kind of started transitioning to bow hunting myself, and I kind of use the rifle to fill the freezer, and then once that's taken care of, I put the rifle away, take my bow out, and I've been fortunate to get some bears and deer and stuff like that with the bow so far. And it's also something about getting into that animal's close environment too, because usually animals are where they feel safe.
Yeah.
So if you can get in that tight to get a bow shot on a giant moose or caribou or whatever, like you say, that's successful in and of itself, let alone letting an arrow fly or not.
Yeah.
So, okay. So you're up in Norman Wells there and stuff, and we talked about that. So now let's go into why you chose this career path. So were you kind of just led into it because your family has done it for a long time, or was your husband doing it when you met him? Like, how did you get into the whole guide life?
So my family has been doing it for generations. Like my great grandfather and great great grandfather were guides in Alberta, like around Wilmore, and they were some of the original outfitters down there. And then my dad guided, and there's me and my sister. When we were little, we were in hunting camps, right? My dad was guiding, my mom was cooking. And then my dad quit guiding probably when I was like 3 or 4. So we went like quite a while without going to the mountains. And I always, like, even at home, I was born and raised here in Fort St. John, and at home I would always feel homesick. And like as a kid, that's something hard to explain when you're at home and you feel homesick. And then, like, as I got older and I started to go like back to the mountains for myself, I was like, oh, this is why I always felt homesick, because that's home. That's home to me. In the mountains is where I truly belong, right? So that's how I got into it. And then in high school, that's what I did as a summer job, was I worked out in Tashodi in high school. And then after college, I went, into the oil patch like we all do in Fort St. John. And it worked perfectly to go to the mountains in the summer and oil patch in the wintertime. And so, that's what led me into the career, was that I just am so passionate about being out there and doing it, whether it was, like, I loved cooking, but I like to be outside more. So then I transitioned into guiding, and whatever needs to be done out there, I don't think I would be unhappy doing any of the things out there. Is that for a career? And my husband, he did not have anything to do, like, he had never guided, he had never like been in the industry at all. He hunted for himself when I met him, but I introduced him to the life of guiding and outfitting and the whole industry behind it.
Okay. Yeah. Oh, that's interesting. So how did you come up on Canol Outfitters then? As did you start that, or did you purchase that from a different outfitter and they were getting out of it, or how did that all come to be?
Yeah, so I guided in the Northwest Territories for 4 years for Stan Stevens, and the neighbor outfit to him sold, and they were looking for a new outfitter. The Aboriginal, the Sawtoo people from Norman Wells bought the area, and they were looking for a new outfitter, and I had just had a baby, so I couldn't go guiding full seasons anymore. So my name was one of the ones that came up for managing the area. And I went through an interview process with a few other people, and like, as soon as it came up, I was like, no, this is my job. This is meant to be, right? So like in the interview process, I was already mentally like, this is my thing. Yeah. So then, it was like, they called me back within a few hours of my interview, really, and were like, all right, like, I think the end of my interview call, I was like, all right, when do I start calling people and booking hunts? Like, like
let's get a website going. Let's get a Gmail account. And let's go.
yeah,
Right.
exactly.
That's
like
awesome.
I was like, this happened for a reason, and this is my job, and I'm doing it. Right. So it worked out absolutely perfectly.
So how long's it been now since you've been doing Canol Outfitters?
4 years.
4 years in there, and then guiding before that was about
12 years.
Okay.
That. Yeah.
So lots of experience, Northwest Territories.
A little bit, yeah.
Okay, so now let's transition into why you keep going back. Like, is it just that constant love for the mountains? Like, is there maybe things that you wish maybe you didn't have to do as an outfitter so you could spend more time guiding, or like what kind of keeps you there?
It is my passion. It's truly my passion in life. With all the controversy right now of COVID-19 and like if a season's going to go or not. And it's like, well, I can't not go, that's not an option for me.
I'll go without
not
clients.
Going. Yeah, like I am going. If I have to hike from BC to base camp, I am going, right? Like that's just like how it is for me. When I had my son, he was born in March with a C-section, and they say, okay, you're supposed to not do heavy stuff, like 3 months for sure, and then 6 months full recovery. When he was like 4 months old, I was guiding backpack hunts in the Yukon again. Like I was
a little bit diehard.
I was like, I need to go.
Yeah.
Like my mom and my dad, thankfully, are so supportive of me, and they love the grandkids. So, but yeah, like when I had my son and my daughter, like trying to guide and like keep having this as like a lifestyle and a passion that's the major difference for a guy and a woman, like
there's a little bit more to juggle.
Yeah, as a mom, to leave your kids for 2 weeks is a much bigger deal than the dad leaving for 2 weeks, like, so yeah, when my daughter was a year old and my son was 1.5, I left them for a month with my parents and went guiding in the Northwest Territories. Oh, I cried until like from Fort St. John until probably like well past the Yukon border.
Yeah.
And then, but once I'm out there, like, you're busy and it's doing the things I love. And so it gives me a restart on, who I am. And if I'm not able to go to the mountains, it's like I lose that little part of myself.
Yeah,
right?
you don't get to be you amongst being the mom and everything else and stuff. So that's really neat. So oh man, I had something really good that was going to come off that. Now it's just like that. It'll come back to me though. I was going to ask you. So like, how big is your territory then that you outfit?
Our territory is 11,000 square miles.
Oh wow,
it's the biggest area in the Northwest Territories.
Okay, and then, so do you have, how many hunters do you normally have in camp then that can go out to different areas at a time, or is it just one party at a time? So
we bring in, sometimes there's more, there's up to 6, but we usually keep only around 4 clients coming in at a time, and that's our number. So it's like, really, you're not going to run into other hunters.
Yeah. Well, it keeps it manageable too, right? Like, I mean, if you've got a dozen hunters, like that would be a lot of logistics coming in and out, helicopters going everywhere and this and that too, right? So
yeah, I feel like we already have a bit of that. Like last year on our first hunt, I think we had like 24 people in camp between, like people bringing people along on the hunt or camera crews along on the hunt. We had a couple camera crews at one time, and, like, all those additional people add up, and it was like,
well, and then with only, you said one helicopter?
Yeah.
Right? So you add a camera crew to that, you could be making an extra 2 trips just to get
Yeah.
people into like the hunting area and things like that. So that's a lot of logistics. And so do your parents come up and help out still every now and then?
Absolutely, they do.
Yeah, that's good.
You know, like it was, of course, my dad, he never says he's proud, but he's so proud of me. Right?
That's a good thing.
Like, yeah, this is our lifestyle. Like, this is our family takes so much pride on being, you know, having this as a passion and continuing this on for generations. And my grandfather, when he was in his teens, worked with the guys who brought horses up from Alberta and surveyed the Canal Road, which runs through the middle of the area that I now manage, and our area is named after. So the fact that my kids get to play on the Canal Road that my grandfather, you know, was there.
It just circles.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
Yeah, it's like, it's where we're meant to be, right?
Well, and that's just, you
so
just
cool.
even have more vested interest in that
Exactly.
area, which makes it even just much more fun and less like, you know, a job or occupation, right? You're just like, so I get to do this and get paid?
Yeah.
Like, that's pretty sweet.
I feel so blessed in my life that, you know, like you see people who, you know, are lost or seeking to find their passion in life. And I feel so blessed that I found, you know, what feeds my soul and what I'm so passionate about, like so early on in my life.
Right.
And I'm able to do it as a career versus, you know, like looking for that now, you know.
So after hunting season ends and you guys come out, what are some of maybe the challenges over winter? Like, do you guys have, are you guys kind of season to season booking hunts, or do you book a couple seasons in advance? Like, is that one of the challenges you find?
Yeah, so when I first started, we had 0 hunters on January 1st, and we had to run that season. So it was like a real scramble to like get clients that year. And, you know, like there was definitely some times where I thought, oh God, like, what am I doing? But really I was like, okay, no, like this came into my hands for a reason and this is going to work out no matter what. Right. So we started booking hunts and we were able to basically book all of the hunters that would be booked for a regular season. So we had like
in your first season.
In our first season.
Wow.
So now we're in our 4th season and we're booking for 2022, 2023 right now. We have no openings until then.
That's a good spot to be in.
Sometimes I feel like I'm not doing enough because I'm like, you know, that first year I had to hustle so hard to, you know, get all the clients in and get everything like down to a T.
And all your systems in place and how you were going to get hunters in. And
exactly.
Yeah.
So that first year was so much of like, now I'm like, okay, well, you know, I'm talking to a guy on the phone about booking in 2024 and I'm like, okay, well, it seems so far out for me, you know?
Yeah.
That it's like.
But that's cool that they're willing to wait that long.
It's amazing.
To go with you guys.
Yes.
Like that's got to feel pretty cool too, because, you know, with this whole COVID thing and everything's kind of up in the air, it can make some people a little bit antsy about what the future is holding. But if you guys are booking out, like, hopefully you guys don't have to defer hunts or anything like that. But, but you know, it's one of those things where it feels good to be wanted like that, you know, because like, I know I as a business owner myself, I know exactly what you're talking about. Like, it is that hard grind at the start where you have to bring in revenue, but at the same time you're figuring out all the logistics behind bringing in the revenue, and it just feels like you're gonna pull your hair out.
Yeah.
Right. But then when it all settles into place and you get that phone call for 2024, you're like, that feels good.
Yeah.
Right. So, and then how about travel and stuff? So in the off season, you guys do sportsman shows and things like that. You travel around with like a kind of like a trade show booth kind of style too. Yeah. Is it more of a promotion, or do you also book hunts on those excursions around? And
Are you the border patrol or asking me as a friend?
I don't know. I don't know. But
Um,
it's probably just more of a promotional thing where you've got your booth and.
yeah, it's you. It's huge networking is what it is.
Okay.
So yes, you have the booth during the day and you meet people through the booth and stuff, but there's also a lot of nightlife involved and meeting people afterwards and getting to know people on different levels that goes on down there that,
Mm-hmm.
like you make connections with different people and it's really like a huge networking that allows you to book hunts in the end,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like,
Yeah. It's kind of like, hey, after the show's over, let's go grab dinner and chat about hunts or whatever,
yeah,
right? And that's, you probably see a little bit of client retention even through that because, like they kind of build that, relationship with you and the outfit and what's going on there and stuff like that.
totally.
So that's pretty
Yeah.
cool. So let's go into the actual guiding challenges. Like, was there any challenges that you felt off the hop when you started guiding? Like, let's even go back further from Canol Outfitters.
Yeah.
That you found was like, okay, I didn't expect that, or this is way more fun than I thought, or this is not as much as fun as I thought.
I distinctively remember my first like sheep hunter that I knew I was getting and so I kind of like maybe I didn't fully know I was getting the sheep hunter, but I was working in the Yukon at Yukon Stone and the outfitter was he flew in and the hunter flew in a different plane and then he's like, yeah, Glenda, I'm not going to be able to come with you. So you just take this client and trail 2 days over to this area and hunt sheep. And, if I get a chance, I'll come and meet you and, like help you out or guide. Right. And so
It's like, I'm just going to push you off the deep end.
Yeah. So I was like, okay. And so I get all the horses packed up. Like this is like the middle of the day, right? When he comes in, I get all the horses packed up, get this client packed up, and we start trailing out. And I am like, we get going up a hill and there's a big, huge tree across the trail. So I get my axe out and I'm chopping it down and I have this whole packed train behind me. And I'm just like crying, chopping this tree down at the front, being like, what the hell am I doing? Right? Like, just, yeah, like getting pushed off the deep end and like, what's going to happen here? Right. And so, yeah, my hunter didn't know I was crying. And he, of course, asked me, he had said to me later on in the hunt, he had said, well, I booked this hunt last minute and I got a really great deal on it. And I just thought, that they would throw me with some guide who had never guided before or something because I had got such a good deal on it. And I think he had paid like $17,000 for a stone sheep hunt. Like it was like an amazing deal, right?
Yeah.
So, and I'm like, oh yeah, like, oh,
yeah.
look away, right?
Yeah.
Like,
how did that hunt go?
We ended up killing a 39.5-inch ram that was 12 years old. It was amazing. And it was kind of an area that was hard to hunt, but I always say I'm the luckiest hunter in the world. I feel like...
Well, sometimes you got to be good to be lucky and lucky to be good, right? Like, that's just the way it goes.
I feel like they just, like, come to me almost because it's a hard area to hunt. And then all of a sudden there was, like, rams everywhere, right? So we ended up taking a really amazing ram on the first hunt. And, yeah, then after that, I guess I hung my...
checkbox. So, like, if you want to hunt and you have a lucky charm, hunt with Glenda. Yeah, no, so that's pretty cool. I mean, that's a really unique story too, right? Because, I mean, capping it off with a ram like that would have just been like, weight off the shoulders, right? Like, oh, I can do this. Yeah. So, okay, let's talk a little bit about some like stories I like story time.
Okay.
Experiences, stories. So like, what would take the top 3 to 5 of your list of crazy things that have happened, amazing things that have happened, like be raw. Like if you got charged by a grizzly, I want to hear about it, kind of thing.
Well, I definitely got charged by a grizzly. I have a story about that.
Let's talk about that one first.
We'll do that one first.
Okay.
So I was moose hunting with this guy. He was not in very good shape.
Mm-hmm.
So we could not go very fast at all. And I had been like, okay, I need to go to the bathroom. And being a girl, that's the biggest challenge about being a guide is you have to go farther to go to the bathroom than a guy would.
Yeah.
That's the biggest
That's fair.
difference, right? And so I had like went in the bush and I was like going pee and I like remember hearing like crack, crack, crack in the bush. And I was like, like that didn't sound, like it just stuck out in my mind. So I like got done, went back to the hunter, and I had a pack dog at that time. His name was Obi. He was amazing. But we started walking and like we probably had to stop every 100, 200 yards. So we walked like maybe between 100 and 200 yards, stopped for another break for this guy. And I hear the cracking and then the dog starts like barking. And so I'm like looking, and at this time period in my career, I did not carry a gun with me. And the client had his gun strapped to his backpack, and we were in willows. And I could just see the bear's ears, like about 50 yards from us. And he's just like standing there, and I'm like, get your gun off. And I'm like, he's taking his pack off, and I am like ripping straps off. And I like grab his gun out and I hand it to him. And I like hollered at the bear. I was like, hey, like I probably swore at him, which I can't say on here, but so he like, the bear just like charged us, and my pack dog charged back at the bear, and they met, like there was like a willow in between us and that bear, like not very far away. And they kind of met in there, and the dog was like just like at the bear, and the bear kind of like semicircled around us, like less than 10 yards away from us. And the hunter just stood there frozen with his gun the whole time, and the bear like semicircled around us and then just walked into the bush away from us. And after that I was like started packing my own gun because
and you got a client that's freezing. Like, I mean, like if you get a hunter that, maybe this is their first mountain experience or something.
This was that guy's first mountain experience. And, he froze with the gun, and I had no gun. And I truly believe it was the dog that saved us, because it was enough to deter the bear.
Yeah, he wasn't expecting any predatory resistance. And then that dog was there, and he was like, And then, I've heard, like, don't quote me on this, but like, I've heard that, obviously numbers can help, right? Because if you're solo, that bear's looking at you one-on-one with him and going, I can win that battle, right? But as the numbers grow, bears can feel maybe outnumbered and be like, okay, maybe I will harm myself in this endeavor, so I'll just keep going. So maybe that, I don't know, but definitely glad that you had the dog there. Because I mean, maybe the bear associated that with wolf or something of that nature.
It was definitely like eye-opening.
So what happened after the bear disappeared? Did the guy change his shorts? Or like, was he just literally frozen in time? Or
he was just literally frozen, and I was like, well, we're still moose hunting, and we went and we killed a moose later that day. We were like actually on the stalk when this happened. Like we had seen the moose and we're like going, like closing the distance when this happened. And then, we went up and we were able to kill the moose later that day, but definitely the dog was still like, I think it affected him too, because he was like on guard, like barking. And the guy that I was with, he was physically like so out of shape. He couldn't help me with any part of it. And I had to like pack the cape out. And then I came back and got the horns and had to pack them out from the kill to like that night before. And the next day when I went back again, I called the outfitter and told them, so he came with me, but a bear had already been on the kill.
On the meat?
Yeah, was already on the meat.
So are you still able to salvage some of that after that happens? Or is it kind of pointless at that point because you don't know what's been kind of, contaminated or whatever?
Like basically legally you cannot shoot a bear to recover your trophy. So or meat or anything.
Is that why you take the horns and cape first?
Yes, we try and get the horns and cape at least, if not like right away, far enough away that if a bear does get on the meat that, you still get essentially what the client came for.
Yeah.
But yeah, the bear was already on the meat in that instance. So in that instance, they buried all the meat in dirt and they've claimed it.
Yeah,
right?
And contaminated it too, right? I mean, it's not like, bears aren't not clean, but it's just like, saliva and claws all over the place and stuff like that too. So like you guys didn't have horses on that particular endeavor,
though? No, that was a backpack hunt in the Northwest Territories.
So I was going to ask you then, going back to what you said, you do backpack hunts at the Canol outfit there. Do you use horses then too?
No.
Oh, it's just straight backpack and helicopter.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah. So like true backpack, not like backpack and horses.
No.
Oh. Have you thought about maybe introducing horses, or would it just be too hard to get horses all the way into there? Or
the area used to run horses in the area, but it's huge country. Like to get to our front range that we hunt, which is we call the front range closer to the Mackenzie River Valley, and we come in from the back end, which is the Yukon border. So to give you perspective, our area runs from the Yukon border over to the Mackenzie River Valley and then down south all the way to the headwaters of the Nahanni River.
Oh, wow.
So it's, like from our base camp, which is pretty central, you could fly an hour and a half one way and still be in our area. So like to get horses that distance is like
I see.
a huge amount of time.
You'd almost have to have other base camps and just really expand the whole outfit if you wanted to do something like that.
And like to fly the other way to the Mackenzie River Valley, it's like over an hour flight one way. That's probably going to take you at least a week or more on horses.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, you just run out of time.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh. So then, pausing the stories for just a moment, I just have a question then. How do you go about scouting that area and like knowing what's all in there and where the hot spots are and stuff like that? Like do you just spend time before the season and you go and you fly the draws and stuff like that and locate animals that way? Or like what's the best way to survey an area that size?
Yeah, the first year that I was there, I had never been in the area before I outfitted it. So it was like going in there, I was like, oh my God, like what am I, But I just was like, okay, I've been to enough areas and hunted enough places that I know that I'm going to find sheep, every new area you go into, you have to just like look at it and be like, okay, we're going to start covering ground, right? So the first year I was there, with the helicopter, I just kind of like looked at the map and then, sectioned out grids of like, okay, like just fly high and look at areas, right?
Yeah, get the layout first.
Yeah. So I think within the first hour of flying that year, we had seen 50 rams.
Oh, wow.
And so I was
like good size, like legal rams, or just 50 rams?
Just 50 rams, like in different bands. And I was like, okay, like that put a big, ease on my,
Yeah.
any nervousness I had about outfitting that year. I was like, okay, like the numbers are here. And obviously the previous outfitter did a good job of managing his numbers and stuff, that it was a very healthy population when we started. But yeah, I just kind of like sectioned off areas, and we would kind of fly it so that, it wasn't just a map anymore.
Right.
It was actual country that we had seen, and kind of the layout, and there's some natural licks and stuff that we noticed flying.
Yeah.
All those kind of things. Or now that we've been there 4 years, it's like you tend to notice patterns when you're out flying. Like I get in the helicopter every time there's an empty flight going somewhere to pick up meat or whatever, I'm in that helicopter. And so you notice like, like sheep tend to be here earlier in the year and here later in the year, or these sheep tend to move in a pattern around this area, or different stuff like that. There's also some guides who previously worked in the area who, sitting down and talking to them. And finding out like that. The previous outfitter wasn't, there was some hard feelings in the changeover, so he wasn't willing to help us out that much, but there was a few people who had guided even like 35 years ago in the area that sat down with maps they had from 35 years ago and like showed me these maps. And it gives you, people who have been in the area give you a good, idea of where to start. And then I do feel it was beneficial not having a lot of help either, because then you have to put so much time into exploring yourself that you go to different areas than maybe what they had. Because, even I find myself year to year, like, okay, we know this place produces rams every single year, and the numbers are so many there that you're going to take a 14-year-old ram or a 13-year-old ram every year, and you can go into that area almost every year and take rams out of there. But being a new outfitter and having to look at everything, now I'm learning that area more, but I had to look everywhere to start with.
Right. But, sometimes it's part of the fun, right? Especially if you already love being out there. Like I say, it's hardly work, right? When you're just exploring new ground. I mean, every time I go out hunting into the mountains or whatever, I'm just like, I've never been over there. Let's go over there. No, not because my odds are increased, but because it's new territory. Like, what are we going to find over there? It's like that around the next corner, mentality, right? So, okay, so let's go back. Let's talk about like one or two more experiences or stories that you have off the top of your head.
Okay. I don't know. I have way too many stories probably. I'll go back to like where we were at when I guided the first hunt I guided, and I was so scared and cried. And then like right after that, they flew me in another hunter, and we hunted for 14 days, and he didn't want a broomed ram. So we had turned down a couple broomed rams, and at the end of the 14 days, we hadn't got a ram. And the outfitter said, like the next hunter after this canceled, you can stay an additional days if you would like. And so the guy was like, yeah, I'll stay additional days. And we had been, this is all like via sat phone back in the day.
Right.
And so he decided to stay, and we continued hunting. And so it was like me, him, and his son-in-law in camp. And so we were like leaving, like I would go wrangle the horses at 4 a.m. and like we weren't getting back until like 11 at night, and then having to cook. And we were running low on groceries because we had been hunting so long, when you only plan for a 14-day hunt and you're still out there going. And it took us 21 days to kill a ram, but it was... it ended up scoring 171 and 5/8. So it took us 21 days to get the ram that he wanted. And it was on my first year guiding. It was.
Was he happy? He had to have been happy.
Oh, he was so happy.
Yeah.
It was funny because the guides in that area, they always like did a bet on who would kill the biggest ram and stuff. So that year after we killed it, the other guides were going to trail through the camp that we had killed it at, going to moose area, because it was into September by the time we were done. And so I just like wrote the measurements of the ram on this sheet of paper and like stuck it in a tree with like ribbons all over it. So when they rode past,
they'd see it.
Yeah, they seen it and they just get this note and it's like all the measurements of the ram I just killed in there. It's like my first year guiding and they're like, they were all really so proud of me. They weren't even upset.
Well, that's good. That's good. So have you been a part of a hunt as a guide where you were able to get like a record book animal? Like not necessarily a sheep, like maybe a moose or caribou or whatever, but
like that ram would have been record book. And then last year I got the honor of going with Joanne on her Joanne Turchansky on her stone sheep tag that she drew the premier's tag.
Okay, yeah, we talked about that on the previous episode. Yes.
So like as soon as she drew the tag, I was like, okay, I don't care. I'm coming with you. I'm your best friend and it doesn't matter where you're going. I'm coming with you. And she was like, okay. So she had went to Big Nine once without me because I was still working. And then we went back there once together. And then we went into an area that was very special to both of us. And it isn't known for producing big rams, right? And they had seen this ram the year before, they think. And we had looked at pictures of it because we had looked at so many rams and flown and looked at sheep. And, you know, that tag is so like a special tag.
Yeah, it's
like
a lottery draw tag. Yeah.
Exactly. So we had looked over a lot of sheep and like, you know, like, okay, well, this one, he's going to be pushing 170, and this one is like really long and flary, but he's probably only like mid 160s because he doesn't have the weight. And so you're like, you know, like looking at all these amazing animals and like picking them apart, like down to like the thing. And, you know, like looking at pictures of this ram, I'm like, okay, if he makes 40 inches, he will be booked because the weight and the way he carries it, and, you know, like all this stuff.
Right.
And so, we went in there and we hiked in the snow in January, the day after her birthday. We had like...
Oh, she didn't mention the birthday part.
Oh, yeah. It was her birthday. So we had a few drinks and had some line dancing competitions in the cabin the night before. And then, the next day we went out and spotted the ram off the lake. And then we snowshoed in. It took us 4 hours of climbing on the snowshoes through like a burn where your snowshoes are like getting caught under everything. And I had never snowshoed before. So that was a challenge all on its own, right? And snowshoed up there and we're able to take like this beautiful old ram. He was 10. He had no teeth left. I think it was a very honorable way for him to die because he had no fat left on him. He had no teeth.
In January.
Still in the winter in January.
Wow.
Like looking at him, you don't know how long he survived the way he did because he had no teeth. How was he getting grass, right? Like his gums were like calloused from however he was eating, right? So I would much rather be able to harvest a ram like that, like a quick, clean kill than, you know, have such a like majestic animal like starve to death over the winter, right? Like to me, taking that ram in January in that area was so, it's emotional, you know, like we went back there this year, just like sledded in there for a trip. And like, as we drive up, me and Joanne are both like welling up with tears, right? Because it was such an emotional experience, you know, like getting to be there with my best friend for her Grand Slam ram even, you know, like so many parts to it. Of course, that's one that sticks out to me.
That's super cool. And you know, and that's the thing too, is with that kind of tag, you can be so selective.
Yes.
Right? And that's, you know, that's just another part of hunting that, lots of hunters, they hunt for sustenance, which is great and that's fine. But you know, there is that other aspect where you get to look over so many animals and you're like that one is really going to be that mature, not just
Yeah.
like the best looking, but like the most mature animal.
Yeah.
Right. And I've heard that even from, outfitters that hunt over bait in Alberta and Saskatchewan and stuff, where they're like, they get to look at 200 bears.
Yeah.
Right. And they're like, no, you want to take that one. And being that selective also helps the gene pool and those other bears or whatever species thrive, and all that kind of stuff. So,
yeah.
wow.
It's cool.
Well, I think we can end it right there. I think that's a great way to end it there. So I really appreciate everybody tuning in to watch this part 3 of the Women in Hunting. Thank you, Glenda, for being on the show, and we'll catch you on the next episode.